This video is for section 11.3 and 11.4, all about lines. So first of all, when we talk about lines, one of the first things we need to know about is the slope. So if you have a negative slope, that means that your line is going down as it goes from left to right. Positive slope means your line is going up as it goes from left to right. No slope or a zero slope is a horizontal line, and a vertical line has an undefined or infinite slope. Slope is often described as rise over run. So in other words, that is the change in y over the change in x. So here we have the slope formula. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. This formula gives a slope of a line which is passing through the points x1, y1, and x2, y2. We use M to represent the slope. Alright, so let's do some examples. So we want to find the slope of a line that passes through these 2 points. So the first thing I always do is label my points x1, y1, x2, y2. So x1 is 7, y1 is 5, x2 is 12, y2 is 10. And then I like to write down what I call like the skeleton or the bare bones of the formula. So like this. Alright. And then I'll fill in my numbers. So that's going to be, oh, I just realized I'm off the paper, off the screen. There we go. Alright. Okay, so that's going to be 10 minus 5 over 12 minus 7. So 10 minus 5 is 5, 12 minus 7 is 5, and 5 over 5 is 1. So it's a slope of 1. Alright, and then I'm just going to do the same thing for number 2. x1, y1, x2, y2. So this would be 1 minus 6 over negative 3 minus 5. So 1 minus 6 is negative 5, and negative 3 minus 5 is negative 8. And then the negatives are going to cancel out, which will just make the final answer 5/8. Number 3, same thing. x1, y1, x2, y2. So here's a really good example of why I kind of write these in 2 separate colors. And write down, here's the bare bones of my formula right here. Alright, the formula has a minus sign on the top and a minus sign on the denominator. Then I'm going to fill in my numbers, which in this case have a lot of negative signs involved. So, a common mistake that people would make is instead of writing minus negative 3, they would just write minus 3, which is obviously not the same thing because minus a negative is going to turn into a plus. So minus a negative turns into a plus. So then it's like negative 9 plus 3, which equals negative 6, and then 4 plus 8, which equals 12. So I have negative 6 over 12, and then I just need to reduce that to negative 1/2. All right, number 4, I have x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, so it's going to be 6 minus negative 2 over 3 minus 5/3. So minus a negative turns into a plus. So 6 plus 2 is 8. All right, and then 3 minus 5/3. So I'll turn that into 3 over 1. And then I'll just do my bow tie method. So that means I'm going to do 3 times 3 is 9 minus 1 times 5, which is 5, over 1 times 3, which is 3. So 9 minus 5 is 4. So it's 8 over 4/3. And when you divide by a fraction, you flip and multiply. So that's 8, which we could call it 8 over 1 if you like. That's going to be multiplied by 3/4. So then 4 goes into 8 2 times. 4 goes into 4 1 time. So then 2 times 3 equals 6. 1 times 1 is 1. And 6 over 1 is 6. All right. Next, we're going to be looking at the point slope formula. So the point slope formula is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. All right, so I use that formula to get the equation of a line. And in order to use that formula, you need to know the slope of the line, and then you need to know a point that's on the line. All right, and then so once you plug that in, so with this formula, you're going to be plugging in 3 numbers. You're going to be plugging in a number for the slope, and then you're going to be plugging in a number for x1 and a number for y1. All right. So then once you plug all of that in, you're going to simplify it to put it into slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. As we know, m is the slope, b is the y-intercept of the line. All right, so we want to find the equation of the line that goes through the point -3, 0 and has a slope of 4. Okay, so just like before, I'm going to start by writing down my bare bones of my formula. So y minus equals do. All right, so see, when you use this formula, you're not plugging in anything for the regular x and the regular y. Those are just going to stay there. All right, and let's see. So we have x1 is -3 and y1 is 0. And then we know that m is 4. All right, so y minus 0 equals 4 times x minus -3. Okay, so then y minus 0 is just y equals, and then minus a negative turns into a plus, so it's going to be 4 times x plus 3. Okay, and then I'm just going to distribute the 4. So that's going to make it y equals 4x plus 12. Okay. All right, number 6, same thing. Alright, so in this case we have x1 is 3, and y1 is a third, and m is -2. So it'll be y minus a third. It's going to be x minus 3. Then m is -2. So y minus a third equals -2 times x minus 3. So in this case, the first thing I would do is distribute the -2, which makes that -2x plus 6. So I have y minus a third equals -2x plus 6. And then I'm just going to add the 1/3 to both sides. So the 6 and the 1/3 need to be combined. And if I use the bow tie method, 3 times 6 is 18, plus 1, so it's 19 over 3. 19 thirds. So I've got y equals -2x plus 19 over 3. Okay, and number 7, same thing. All right. So we have x1 is 3, y1 is -2, and m is 2/3. All right, so y minus 2, or y minus -2 turns into y plus 2. So y plus 2 equals 2/3 times x minus 3. I guess I could have gone ahead and distributed that, but I didn't. Okay. So 2/3 x, and then 2/3 times -3. The 3's are just going to cancel out, and it's just going to be -2. So y plus 2 equals 2/3 x minus 2. And then I'm just going to subtract 2 from both sides. All right, so that would be y equals 2/3 x minus 4. All right. Number 8. So in this case, we're looking for the equation of a line that is going through 2 points. So this time they did not give us the slope, but they gave us 2 points. So we're going to have to use the slope formula first to find the slope. So that's x1, y1, x2, y2. So m equals alright, so that'd be 5 minus 8 over 0 minus -1. So 5 minus 8 is -3. And 0 minus -1, so minus a negative is a plus. So that's like 0 plus 1 is 1. So that gives me -3, and that is my slope. So now I'll go ahead and get my point slope formula. All right, so y minus y1, which is 8, and then x1 is -1, -3. Okay. So first I'll just go ahead and simplify. Minus a negative makes that a plus. Bring everything else down. So I got y minus 8 equals -3 times x plus 1. And then I'm going to distribute the -3. That's -3x minus 3. And that still equals y minus 8. And then finally I just need to add 8 to both sides. So y equals -3x plus 5. All right. So on number 9, I am looking for an equation of a line that has an undefined slope that goes through the point 4,6. So undefined slope tells me that it has to be a vertical line. All right, so it's a vertical line, so that means the equation has to be x equals a number. All right, and so in this case, that number is 4. That's the x value. So if that's the x value of one point, it must be that x value for all the points. Okay. All right, a horizontal line, not tine. Oops. Horizontal line. So that would have to be y equals a number. And that number in this case is 7. All right. Okay. Let's go into graphing of lines. All right, so first of all, the first thing I'd like to do is have my equation of my line in slope-intercept form, which this is. So then you can match it up with y equals mx plus b. So we can see that m is 2, so that's the slope. It's 2. And then b is the y-intercept. So in this case, that is -5. So now whenever I go to graph it, the first point that I'm going to plot is that y-intercept at -5. So I'm going to put a point on the y-axis at -5. All right, and now my slope is 2. So that's the same thing as 2 over 1. So in other words, I can go up 2 and over 1. So from a point that I already have, I go up 2 over 1. All right, and whenever I am graphing by hand, it helps, the more points, the better. So I'll just basically take up my whole space going up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. And so technically you only need 2 points, but like I said, if I'm doing it by hand, it'll just look better the more points that I plot. And then I just go ahead and draw my line through all of those points. Okay, number 12. So if we match this up with y equals mx plus b, we can see that the slope m is -4/3 and the y-intercept, which is b, is 1. So the first point I'm going to put on the graph is my y-intercept at 1. So that's a point on the y-axis at 1. And then the slope is -4/3. So that means I'm going to go down 4/3. So starting from the point that I already have, go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 1, 2, 3. All right. All right, number 13. So in this case, my equation is not in slope-intercept form, so that's the first thing that I want to take care of. So I just need to get y by itself, basically. So I just need to subtract 3x from both sides and add 2 to both sides of the equation. So that would give me y equals -3x plus 2. So there's my slope-intercept form. So now I can see that my slope is -3 and my y-intercept is 2. So I'll go ahead and put a point at 2. That's my y-intercept. And then the slope is -3. So that means I'm just going to go, that's the same as -3/1. So it means I'm going to go down 3/1. And whenever we say over, we always mean to the right. All right. Number 14, 2x equals 8y. So I like to have the y on the left, so I'll just start by flipping it around. So it'll be 8y equals 2x. And then I want to get y by itself. So I'm going to divide both sides by 8 to get y by itself. So 2/8, that's going to reduce to 1/4. So it's going to be y equals 1/4 x. All right, so in this case, we can see that m is 1/4 and b, so you could say there's like a, you could say there's a +0 there. So b is 0. So I'm going to plot my y-intercept at 0, and then my slope is 1/4. So I'm going to go up 1/4. All right, and it's also useful in a situation like this to think about the fact that 1/4 is the same thing as -1 over -4, which means instead of going up and over, you could also alternatively go down and backwards, or in other words, to the left. So sometimes that comes in handy if you just don't have enough room to go in one direction, you can go the other direction. Or, I mean, I just like to have another point if I can, so there we go. All right. Number 15. 3x equals 9. So I don't have a y to solve for, so I'll just go ahead and solve for x. Divide both sides by 3. Gives me x equals 3. So we know that that is a vertical line. All right, so it looks like this. Okay, so the slope is undefined. And there is no y-intercept. All right, number 16. I'm going to solve for y. Subtract 12 from both sides. And that gives me 3y equals 12. And then divide both sides by 3, so y equals 4. So that's a horizontal line at 4. Should be -4. Oops, I accidentally dropped my negative there. Yeah. So that is what my line looks like. So the slope is 0 and the y-intercept is -4. So yeah, you could say that's y equals 0x minus 4. All right. Parallel and perpendicular lines. Okay, so you probably have some idea, a concept of parallel when you think about two streets that maybe run parallel to one another. They wouldn't, if they were parallel, then they would not intersect, right? And so in terms of the slope, we would parallel lines actually have the same slope, okay? And then perpendicular lines, we would commonly think of those as lines that are intersecting at a right angle. But in terms of the slope, their slopes are opposite reciprocals. So that means that one of them would be positive, one would be negative, and then they're flipped. Okay, so like, you know, 2/3 and -3/2, for example. Okay, all right, so let's see. We have, if a line has a slope of 11/4, okay, then the slope of the line that is parallel to it will also be 11/4. And then the slope of the line that's perpendicular to that will be -4/11. Okay, and then if your line has a slope of -5/8, then any line parallel to that will also have a slope of -5/8, and any line that's perpendicular to that would have a slope of +8/5. All right, and then number 19, if the slope is 3, that means that the slope of the parallel line is 3, and the slope of the perpendicular line is -1/3. Okay, so Next we will determine if the two lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So we have a line through these 2 points and a line through those 2 points. So we're going to have to use the slope formula on each one and then determine from there. So x1, y1, x2, y2. So, okay, that'll be -2 minus 8 over 6 minus -10. So that would be -10 over, so minus a negative makes it a plus, so that's 16. So -10 over 16, and then I'm going to reduce it. So it's going to be -5/8. Okay, so there's that slope. And then I'm going to do the other slope. Okay, so x1, y1, x2, y2. All right. So m equals 19 minus 3 over 18 minus 8. So that's 16 over 10, which reduces to 8 over 5. All right, so if we compare those two slopes, -5/8 with 8 over 5, we can see that they are perpendicular. Okay, and number 21, they've given us the equation of the two lines, but we'll need to put them in slope-intercept form so that we can find out the slope of each one. So we're going to get y by itself. So subtract 4x from both sides. So that would be 7y equals -4x plus 8, and then divide each term by 7. So that gives you y equals -4/7 x plus 8/7. So the slope of this line is -4 over 7, and then let's do the same thing for the other. So let's add 7x to both sides. So that would be -3y equals 7x plus 24. And then I will divide each term by -3. So that gives me